All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Dharma Digs podcast, a podcast in pursuit of purposeful living. I'm your host, Taylor Winchester, and as always, I am extremely grateful that you have chosen to take a little bit of time out of your day to stop by and tune into this podcast. So thanks for being here once again, folks. Real quick shout out on the front end to everybody that joined me this past Monday for our very first group meditation practice. It happens on Zoom, and I appreciate everybody that stopped by and checked that out. If you are interested in learning a little bit more about meditating or want to implement a meditation routine into your practice, or a practice into your routine, I should say, I would love for you to join me this coming Monday, and all you have to do is head over to my website, which is taylorwinchestercreates.com/meditate, and you can sign up to join us. So another quick shout out actually to one of the kind gentlemen that showed up this Monday was Leonardo Solis. Love Leo, great guy, great music producer. He was actually my very first interview on this podcast, and he was so kind to also share some of his music, which is usually the music you hear as intro and outro music on this podcast. So yeah, thanks, Leo. All right, today's conversation features Jordan Ross and Tom Crenshaw from down in the Low Country area of South Carolina in Bluffton. They are actually the folks behind the Roasting Room, which is an amazing music venue down there. They are both also musicians themselves, but today we talk a little bit about how finding time to be in the moment, in the present moment, is so vitally important in our lives, but not also just in our lives, but more specifically how it maybe falls in line with the atmosphere they've created at the Roasting Room. And it's such an intimate venue. If you've not seen a show there, we'll talk a little bit about it in this episode, of course, but you should get a trip on your books once full shows start to come back to reality here in this pandemic world we live in. But I really enjoyed this conversation. Jordan and Tom just had some really unique insight into what they've done and how they've worked towards their purpose of creating a unique scene down in the Bluffton area, but also how, again, mindfulness and awareness of the present moment can really be of vital importance into our lives. So I hope you guys enjoy this conversation as I did. And yeah, as always, thanks again for being here. And without further ado, let's get into today's conversation with Tom and Jordan. All right, cool. Jordan, Tommy, welcome to the Dharma Digs podcast. Thanks for being here today. How you guys doing this morning?
Doing fantastic. The pleasure is ours.
Awesome.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. It's great to connect. I did a quick introduction already, but as everybody I kind of mentioned, Jordan and I became acquaintances via the Roasting Room, which you book all the music for there. So why don't you each of you give a quick little kind of background, elevator pitch, if you will, on what it is you're doing and at the Roasting Room and kind of how it all came to be, I guess.
Sure. Well, in late 2015, the owner of the Corner Perk coffee shop and I got together and said, let's put a venue together. Let's do something that's a little risky. Let's do something that has not really been done in Bluffton or really in the surrounding area. Let's really focus on making a venue that people will want to go and listen, specifically for original music, specifically to sit and be a listening room. So we really started with the mindset right away of let's really hone in on that. Let's make it sound good. Let's make the room sound better than most, if not all of the rooms in the area. So we really paid attention to that and started with local bands. And I mean, from there, it was just a slow plodding towards getting a little more regional bands. And then before long, the floodgates opened, and it was national bands, and it was international bands. And we only have 85 seats in the room, but we are able to bring in, Grammy winners, artists that are on international tours that, we've had an artist that was the cultural ambassador to Greenland was there. So it's been such a wild and unexpected ride in the last 5 years, but really started with just a very simple idea of let's make something that people want to go to and focus on and listen to. And that was kind of it.
Yeah, and I'll say, I mean, having been there and played a show there with Alonzo Wesley a couple years ago, and also the guys in Tom Sawyer have nothing but great things to say about you guys and the venue. But it is such a unique space, and I think the closest thing I have to compare it to, just from being from Charlotte, is like an Evening Muse vibe, which is certainly the same kind of atmosphere, creating that really an ambiance for. And we'll talk a little bit about this, but really being in the moment of enjoying the show, and it not being just another bar venue that you're kind of competing with sound of
Sure.
everything else. I also really appreciated the whiskey vibes and bourbon vibes. So how did that kind of mesh in with with the concept?
That had very little to do with me and everything to do with Josh Cook, who went from being like the coffee guy to being the whiskey guy. Okay. So he's the type that when he gets into something, he goes in 100%. So he surrounded himself with people that knew a lot more than he did at the time about whiskey. And it was 5 years ago, was still very, very hot in the market. And at the time, there was no other whiskey rooms really around. So he just started collecting bottles and putting them on the wall and then selling them kind of as he saw fit, as for pricing and all that stuff. But
it's my favorite part.
Yeah.
And really just, it kind of, again, just kind of organically grew out of, people would come and say, hey, next time, why don't you put a bottle of this on the shelf? Or we really love this particular bourbon, or can you find this? So it really was a community effort on that way as well.
Yeah, that's very cool. I mean, it's a differentiator, I think, in a lot of ways too, because you don't go in. I mean, you can always get a lot of venues. You can get cocktails and kind of a decent bourbon, but I think it just helps add to that overall vibe of the room, which is really, really cool. And for those that haven't been, Bluffton is not like this is what was really interesting to me, because it's not a major market, so it's kind of this tertiary. It's a great opportunity for bands that are touring through, like you mentioned, national acts that maybe want, not even an off night per se, but just a great opportunity to hit a market that otherwise I don't think there are really any other venues in Bluffton that many bands think about stopping in for.
No. And Bluffton really is not on anyone's map and wasn't on anyone's map. And when we first started and reached out to agencies, they were like, so that's where? That's around, it's close to Savannah, close to Charleston. Okay. Well, we have a route through from Jacksonville to Atlanta. Are you guys anywhere near that? And then, so of course we eventually got people to know that it's just right off of 95. It's great. It's a great route.
Right.
It's really perfect for going on a southeast tilt, because we have not only the perfect drive time, but it's a beautiful country too. So you have a way to kind of chill out and take in the sights and go down to the May River and bicycle around, like some of the acts that we've brought in.
Yeah.
They just love spending time there and want to come back. And that's another great part about it too, is we're in a beautiful area. So, the next time around, the artists that we struggled to get the first time, I can't wait to get that back on the books and then spend 2 days there, 3 days there, instead of just an overnight trip. So that's really helped us as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said about that from somebody. I've worked in venues. I spent a little over 5 years working for Live Nation at the Fillmore here in Charlotte, and so like there is absolutely something to be said about creating not only the vibe for the concert goers or the music fans, but really for the acts as well. I mean, you have to, you want them to want to come back and to tell the other bands that they play with or other agency roster acts that you might be interested in, like, hey, this is a place you guys need to go check out. And I think it's safe to say you guys have done a great job of that. So
thank you. Yeah, I do feel that way. I do feel like we have got a great start. And I think the people that have come through are really great at word of mouth, and they tell lots. And we get emails from bands of friends of bands and say, well, man, these guys loved it. We would like to get a show here. And agencies do the same thing. So it's really been great.
Yeah. So how did you kind of transitioning into the venue world? Did you have any experience from the industry side of things? Because you obviously are acting as the talent buyer. So did you just kind of learn that through through doing it, I guess?
Well, Tommy Crenshaw.
I taught him everything he knows. So no, I'm joking.
No, well, really going back to, and one of the reasons why Tommy is here to begin with is there was a lot of the beautiful part of Bluffton Hilton Head is there are so many musicians and a musician community around that they have great ideas and they have played in venues all over the country. And so it really was how can I help you? How can I support you? How can I add to this vision? And that was one beautiful part of Tommy and I's relationship is he was always there for advice for, hey, you should try this, or why don't you book this person? You really should charge this amount for things like that. That really was something that I was just the eternal shrug. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a musician, but I'm not a touring musician, and I don't know what they want. So that was something that really helped. Was just that the community at large was really helpful in setting some of that stuff up.
That's awesome.
He's a humble, modest guy.
That's good. That's
really the head encourager.
Hey, well, we need that.
Encourage and lift their spirits when it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. The rewards are pitiful financially. So you do it because you have a passion for it.
Yeah.
And Jordan and Josh obviously have a passion for it. And so people need encouraging, and I love encouraging. It's just a great thing to, a little bit goes so long and a long way. And I really mean it. These are great guys. They're doing a noble service to the community and for musicians. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, man. Well, and back to the financially thing, there is no incentive financially to do what we do. And really hasn't ever been one. And that wasn't the point. We started it with the goal of let's break even. Let's do something that is cool because we want to. And I don't want to sound like I don't need money, because I do. But I'm also a working musician. And on Hilton Head, you can work 8, 9, and really sometimes year round, doing weddings and private parties that Tommy is really involved with and getting me going on. So that's the main gig. Yeah. So this is kind of the getting my soul back from playing all covers all the time.
Yeah.
And that was another reason why I was really into, hey man, let's do an original venue, because people do write great music around here. And how often do they get to play it?
Right.
If not, maybe a little bit, but not showcasing it, not going out specifically to hear it. So that was a big deal. Yeah. Not because of the finances, but because of the passion behind it.
Well,
I've seen so many musicians, so many very gifted musicians in such a small cluster. But I mean, between Savannah and Charleston, there's a couple million people.
Yeah.
And venue wise, you can draw from that. Mm-hmm. And artistically wise, it's just chock full of the most talented people who love the area, don't want to go anywhere, and just want to support each other.
Yeah.
So that's very encouraging too.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, as a musician, I'm like with you, Jordan, it's tough to you play the gigs because you need to and you want to make the money, but it's few and far between that people are coming out to those gigs, as we call them, versus the shows that are saying, hey, I want to hear your original music. They just happen to be there a lot of times because they're supporting the brewery or supporting, whatever little venue it is. So it is nice to have a place that you can go into it and maybe have a set list that is built around your original music with a couple of covers mixed in versus a set list of cover tunes that maybe you mix a couple originals in. So that's amazing. And you guys touched a little bit on it, but the whole passion, as I ask all the guests on this, is the whole purpose of this show is really to kind of dig into the actual purpose behind what it is you do and how you find that sense of purpose. So I think you've touched on it a little bit, but are there any other kind of community stories or things that really come to mind throughout the years there that have really give you this feeling of like, this is what we're supposed to be doing and this is the community we're supposed to be building?
I have many examples. You want to start?
Virtual sellouts at almost every show. just community, just musicians supporting musicians, loving on each other, fundraising for each other, writing on purpose, writing intentionally, writing for a noble essence of this is what we do, and being brazen and saying this is what we do, and not unabashedly stepping forward and being present.
Yeah. And I mean, from our trip down there, like we had never played the market before, so we were super fortunate that you guys let us even come play there. But also seeing I mean, we didn't sell out, but the crowd that showed up, the people were so attentive, and so they were there for a reason. And you know, Jordan, you mentioned, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the quotes here in segment 2, but that whole kind of being in the moment, I think that's what I love so much about the Evening Muse here and about your venue at the Roasting Room, is that when people that make the effort and are going to pay to come see a show there, they're there for the music, and it's a very intentional moment that you're getting to interact with them. And it's not something that happens a lot, especially when you get into a venue that starts to get much larger than that. You don't have that same kind of intimate atmosphere, intimate moment. So
right, it's a lot harder to control, especially when we get past the 85 mark, to control that's a lot of people to be like, hey guys, let's all be intentional here. Because it takes one person to break that bubble, and it's all over. So yeah, we really, at the very least, we have tried to create the atmosphere and allowed for people to live into that intention. But invariably, there will be times when it doesn't happen, and it depends on the artist too. If the artist is equally, feels that and is equally engaging and knows that they've got them in the palm of their hands, and I can think of many examples of artists that have done that it might have been a rowdy crowd. Like if given the opportunity, they would have been very talkative, very rowdy, just, let's drink our faces off.
Yeah.
But they got to a segment in the show where they used dynamics, and they used intention to get people to come to that level of focus. And I'm thinking of Danger Muffin, who is incredible at that. They get to a crescendo, and they can tell that people are kind of feeling that crescendo, and they're going to start talking to others, and they go way down, and people are like, stop talking. It's really effective, and it's so much fun to watch. It's fun to watch the artist feel the crowd, and to know that in a small way, I had something to do with it. Like, if it weren't for what we had started, this moment, this intention, all of these little things wouldn't have happened. And it's a really fills you up. And that's why we're doing it.
You become co-creators. The artist is creating, the audience is responding and creating an essence the artist responds to,
for sure,
which creates more response, and it builds, it comes to a crescendo,
and what happens more often than not is tears. That is a very interesting byproduct of that of that give and take, is that emotion really starts to come in unexpected ways. I was listening to, this was maybe, 3 years ago. We had Joshua James come in with his band. And the last song, he did a song that I was not familiar with. And it was the type that, you could hear a pin drop, and everyone was so focused on it, and it was so quiet. And you got that one word that changed the whole song and made it just incredibly sad. And it was just, you felt everything that he was saying. And I was like, why am I crying? Like, what is going on right now? Like, I didn't even realize what I was doing, because I was so sucked into that intention. He knew what he was doing. And he knew that if they were going to, in his full band, we're talking 5 pieces on the stage, but it was so effective and so cool to watch that all go down and then react from it in a way that I don't usually do.
Right.
That was another real, just a unexpected.
It was juicy moments. It was
live. So juicy.
Yeah. And you love, and they're so fleeting.
They're so fleeting. They are, for sure.
Yeah. It's like a drug, you want more of it. And it's just, it's hard to, it's hard to explain, but also hard to kind of capture it each and every time. So
so hard to recreate, and I think that's what we're chasing too. That the recreation of that every time we put a show on. It's like, man, can we get to that? Can we get to that mountaintop again?
Yeah,
like maybe this is the one.
It's a little different when you're in a Coliseum setting. That's a word we don't use this year because we can't do Coliseums. But we're with 12,000, 25, 45,000 people. It's the same exact experience as if you're with 85.
right.
And it's that much more special because you are only with a small dedicated audience that is passionate about the craft and listening and co-creating. And it's just that much more special. Yes, 12,000, 45,000 come together and be one. And it's just as beautiful as 85 coming together and being one. I mean, where two are gathered.
I'll argue sometimes more so.
Yeah.
More so with 85 because you can see everybody's reaction. Sure. Like, what's going on in the entire room.
Yeah.
So there's no one hidden from you. I think that's another thing too, is the community gets so tight. And we have found that there's many regulars that come to very specific shows because they have a feeling that this is going to be the one that's going to get them back to that mountaintop. And they'll avoid other shows that they're like, this is a local guy that likes to be a jokester. And this isn't going to be the one that I'm going to feel. So they chase that feeling too, which is fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I have a similar story. So I produced a concert series with Midwood Entertainment here in Charlotte, and this was, I think, 2 years ago now. Well, actually, probably 3 years ago now, but it was the kickoff weekend, and we had River Wireless playing it, and the storm rolled in. The opening band, Sinners and Saints, who may have played down there. They're a Charlotte band.
They're great. Yeah.
Yeah, those guys, Perry and Mark, are great. But they opened the show, and then their set played off fine, but then the storm rolled in, and it kind of cleared everybody out. And we were hoping that maybe it would pass, whatever. But River Wireless, the band, they were just so kind of going with the flow, and they wanted to play as much as the people there wanted them to stick around and play. But a small group just kind of huddled under these tents, which was probably not the safest thing with these lightning storms popping off everywhere. And we finally realized that, hey, this show's not going to play off, but the band was kind enough to gather under the merch tent and just do like 2 songs acoustically. Cool. It was so cool. And I call it like a very poor quality video of it, but it's what you're talking about, that emotion that's there. And it's something that you can't recreate, but the band is feeling it. As you mentioned, Tommy, that I love the term co-create, because the band is obviously vibing off of all of those little intricacies that are happening, and it's just a handful of people. So it's just such a unique moment that, to have more of those is the goal. But how do you just recreate it? You can't, unless you have a very unique and special space, and that's what I think the roasting room has become.
It is. We could talk about this for hours and hours, but when you roll that live music and that passion and that warmth of creativity, co-creativity through senses, you don't use that often. You use them at special occasions. If you go to see art or if you go to listen to live music, you're rolling things through senses you don't usually use during work days and average just life. These are special, special moments. And you find yourself, wow, I'm mesmerized, I'm enthralled, and you walk out feeling 10 feet tall, and you want to come back and do it again. It's a drug, like you said, it was a drug. So
what I love about what you said about co-creating and what you mentioned as well is, isn't it interesting how you can just by focusing your attention on something can create? Isn't that wild to think about? Like, you don't have to do anything other than to just to be in the moment. Like, that's such a overlooked and overly simplistic thing to think about. But if everyone does that, especially at a show, what happens? The sublime happens.
Yeah,
it's a heady thing.
It is. It very much is. And I think, as you just mentioned, if everybody kind of took implemented those kind of moments or took those times to kind of quiet down, meditate, whatever you want to call it, really come to this moment of really being in the moment, the world would probably be quite a better place in a lot of ways.
A quieter place, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
More music, more art.
There'd be more
yeah,
art.
yeah, more appreciation for it. Yeah, I'm going through this meditation training to be able to teach it, and one of the things they talk about is really the infinite possibilities. And within the meditation specific, it's like finding the gap, and sometimes that gap is between breaths or between the mantra. But the reality in it, I think it's similar to what you're saying, is that if you truly succumb to this moment now and being and really fully being in the moment, the possibilities are endless, especially when you talk about bringing in this art and the sound and some of the research I'm doing. I mean, they're doing chants and all these things, and I haven't fully gone down that avenue of it, but I think I can appreciate it, because it's the same thing we're talking about when you're sitting at a show and you're just fully engrossed in like that performance and that energy that's in that room. You forget about everything else, and we all need more of that, especially with the craziness that's happening around right now,
And not absentmindedly forgetting, though.
No,
like
no,
you're,
very
you're not
intentionally.
absentmindedly doing it. You are intentionally so, and sometimes transfixed in a you didn't even mean to. It depends on the art. Again, it depends on the artist. But there are some artists that will take you, and you think you've got 1,000 things on your mind, and just go, boom, I got you right here.
Yeah.
And they'll hold it. And if they're really good, they will hold it for a long time.
Yeah.
And they will not break that.
And that's not an easy thing to do as an artist. You have to, as you guys mentioned, kind of being able to co-create with the energy that you're feeling off of the crowd. But you mentioned Danger Muffin. I mean, those guys, they can play a festival stage and play to thousands of people, but then also take that energy to a more intimate atmosphere and go from the highs of this jam band vibe to a very, intimate singer-songwriter feel almost, and every band can't do it. I mean, I think every band probably strives to, but that takes a lot of in-person practice, I say, as well.
Sure. Yeah. But I think that's a noble goal to have as a band. It's like, man, let's can we get to there?
Set your intention to be that kind of band, and you will get there. If your heart desires it, you will get there. But it's not the easiest.
But it doesn't have to be really, very meditative type of music.
No.
You go to Dead concert, and that's meditating in a totally different way.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Very true.
It might be chemically induced,
yeah,
but it's something.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, before we transition to segment 2, I just want to ask real quick, kind of how are you guys holding up from a business perspective? I mean, I keep up with the emails, and that's kind of what prompted this outreach for me. But are there anything new in the works that maybe is coming out of this time to kind of slow down from a standpoint? You don't have shows every night, so how's the venue holding up, and what are you guys looking forward to maybe in 2021? And hopefully we'll get back to some sense of normalcy from a live show perspective, but what are you guys working on?
Well, let me go back a little bit and talk about how we came out of this. We had, in October, the middle of October, I sent an email to the public, and kind of with a shrug, like, hey guys, the end is nigh. We have for months now have been moving shows. We gave massive amounts of refunds back to people that didn't want to keep their tickets for the rescheduled date. And to a lot of people, there were shows that they were coming to in the summer that they weren't going to be coming back to because they were tourists, and that happens quite a bit now. Mm-hmm. So I didn't balk at any refunds and gave them promptly. But we got to a point where we were about a month away from not having any money left, including even though we don't have any rent per se, because we have a deal with Josh and Corner Perk, how we deal with the bar and the music, it's totally separate. So he can benefit from the bar side, so I don't have to rent the space from him. So that helped a lot. That's really what kept us going. But we got to a point where our cash flow was beyond repair. So I reached out to everyone and said, this is kind of up to you guys now. We don't have any idea when the shows are going to start back up. and we'd like to start them, but we also know that people are scared. So if you want this to continue into the new year, we need help. And it starts with buy a gift card, sign up for the patron program.
You become a patron. If anything, just become a patron.
Right, become a patron. A patron is a really simple thing to be a patron of Roasting Room. You get a secret email from me that kind of gives you an idea of what's coming up and gets you a ticket link before everyone else. So you're on the special crew. You get to know what's coming on. You also get an email from time to time, an email about some thoughts. If there's something that they want to see in particular. I haven't had to do that because of COVID, but it's more of you're in the secret club. Yep. You're in the Roasting Room club kind of thing. Get all the merch. But anyway.
And it's tax deductible, isn't it?
No. I'm sorry. I wish it were. Yeah. We're not a 501c3. We should be. We are a nonprofit.
Yes, we are a nonprofit.
But that said, I sent that email out, and within 48 hours, we were back in the black. So the community absolutely showed up. They bought gift cards. They bought patron stuff. They bought tickets to stuff that I'm like, I don't know if this show is ever going to happen. And you're probably going to get your money back, but thanks for the cash flow kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and then we were like, all right, well, here's the next email. Do you guys want to have a show again? Do you want to come and see something at half capacity? Is that something you would even support? Or you just want to wait till it's all blows over?
Right.
We had enough people say, yeah, let's do one. Let's see how it works. So we invited Ed Rowland, who now has a pipeline from Atlanta here. He stays in Palmetto Bluff, which is just outside of town. Mm-hmm. He was introduced to the room via Angie Aparo, who is a saint as far as I'm concerned. He has brought in so many cool people to our room and is a huge vocal supporter.
Yeah.
And he's a kind of a Grammy winner in his own right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess you'd count that. Mm-hmm. I mean, he wrote Cry for Faith Hill, which won it back in the early 2000s.
I don't think I realized that.
Anyway,
I haven't listened to his stuff in
kind of
so
a
long.
Local transplant from Atlanta. He knew Ed, brought Ed, and he played. The first show back was November 20th. We did, which was so awesome. We did a charity for the the Deep Well Project Santa shop, where people could come in and buy gifts for their kids that might not be able to afford those kinds of gifts.
Right.
So we were able to raise a considerable amount of money for them through Ed's donation. He donated all the ticket sales went cool. to that. So it was so great to go from that email saying, I don't know if we're going to make it, to a month later being able to write a huge check to a charity and still be okay.
Yeah.
Like that was such a turn of events, and just I felt buoyant after that. Like we're going to be okay. It's really, really supported here. So now moving on, we're now in the middle of January, and we have shows, but not many. We've like 4 or 5 per month, and they're all locals. A couple of regionals that have toured, but not anything out of the Southeast, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We're hoping we've got some things on the books for second quarter, but they're still, I don't know. I don't know if I don't think we're going to be able to safely go back to full capacity until the summer. Yeah. That's just my thought, but I could be wrong. I'd like to be wrong, but
yeah. I think everybody would like.
We'll keep doing what we've been doing. We're moving the bigger shows to this late summer and fall, and we're gonna be okay.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, I'm everybody. I think everybody hopes that you're wrong and that we can get back to the full capacity sooner than later. But
I want to be wrong so bad.
Yeah. But I think that just also goes to show the story you just told, that the community that you've created down there is such a unique and awesome thing. And maybe unique isn't the right way to say it, but it's unique for the area, and people buy in.
I think there are many communities like ours that have that latent river of people that would totally support something like that. And it does just take someone to come in with a key and unlock it and be like, hey, let's do it. Let's do a cool thing. And I had someone up in I think maybe outside of Greenville, reach out and wanted to do the same thing. And mean, my only advice was tap into that right away.
Yeah.
Find out who your big supporters are and go from there. That's how we found it right away. Was we found people like Tommy who were like, yep, whatever you need, let's make this happen.
Make it happen. Figure it out. Yeah. That's very cool. Well, thanks. I mean, I certainly hope that, I'm super glad to hear, obviously, that the community came together to support, and I encourage anybody that has not been to Bluffton and to the roasting room specifically to make some plans to get down there. Hopefully this summer we will be back to normal, but check them out for sure. I think that's a good opportunity to kind of segue in. We talked a little bit about purpose in the first earlier part, but you shared a couple of quotes with me, or a quote or two, and I shared some stuff back with you, and it's talking really about this idea of truly accepting and becoming more present in the moment. And what prompted my outreach to you, Jordan, we talked before we went live here, was the email that you sent out. And remind me now, because I didn't write it down, but what was you were talking about a movie, right?
Well, we had just watched over Christmas, Soul came out, Disney Plus, and the kids watched it. And of course, I sat down and watched it with them. Yeah. And I was crying at the end. I'm like, why am I crying? Oh, I know why. Because that movie tapped into a whole, just an undercurrent of overestimating your purpose and really digging into the little tiny details that happen throughout your life that are the ones that are the most meaningful. And I think that one of the main character was a jazz pianist, and he really got in the moment when he played jazz. And that's what he thought his whole purpose was. Like, man, my whole purpose is to play music for people. And as it goes along, he meets the antagonist at the time, but as it turns out to be someone that just needed to be shown that living is okay. It's okay to just, these little things that make life worth living is really what it's all about. And he got to a point where he, of course, had a change of heart. As he was playing his music, he realized that she loved the taste of pizza, and she was like an out of body experience when she ate it for the first time. Yeah. But of course, we take that for granted, and we take the other things for granted. And when she heard music when she heard a busker on the street, she stopped and really paid attention to him. And everyone just walked right past, and she threw in a half a bagel because that's all she had. So it was just the whole, I don't know, like it really hit me so hard between the eyes. And I'm like, this is really important. And it also is the reason why we do what we do at Roasting Room. We are so fixated on the right now. Like, you have got to be right here, right now, or you'll miss it. Yeah. Because this band is not coming back for hopefully a year. But they like Joshua James, I haven't seen him in 3 years, and he lives in Utah. Like, right. This will not be recreated again. Right. So, please not only come and enjoy it, but take it in. Really be present, because it's going to be gone.
That's right. Yeah, I was thinking, I thought that was a movie, but I didn't want to misquote, and that's why I let you do it. But that prompted, I think it was a week or so later, my wife and I watched it. We don't have any kids, but we watched that movie just because. And she's nannied for some kids in the past, so she got into the Pixar stuff. So it was like, yeah, we'll watch this. And it was a great movie, and I think the point of it and kind of the story and the mission behind it was all like it's all what you just said, and finding appreciation for not just. Of course, find appreciation for what brings you joy and the things that you love to do, but ultimately it's also all the other things, the fact that we are even physically in form and have this sense of consciousness. We need to really take hold of it and appreciate it, And so I appreciate you. Obviously, that prompted you to write a very specific newsletter, which I am on, the Roasting Room's newsletter. So if you're not,
anyone can sign up.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If for you listeners, you should go sign up for the newsletter, because you get more than just access to what shows are coming up. You get some insight from Jordan. But as we and that prompted me to reach out to Jordan and say, hey, let's catch up for a chat and share it with the world. But as I ask all my guests, I will either share with them a quote, or they'll share some quotes with me, and we dive in and unpack them a little bit. And so from that, Jordan shared a Dr. Seuss quote that is one of his favorites, and it is simply, "Sometimes you will never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory." So I'm going to read it one more time for you listeners. "Sometimes you will never know the value of a moment until it becomes a memory." And that's a Dr. Seuss quote. So unpack that a little bit for us, Jordan and or Tommy. What do you guys think on that?
Well, I mean, I've got still small children, so I am full of those little moments that I'm already looking back and being like, got a lump in my throat right now. Like there are so many little things that it's so easy to take for granted. I'm going to stop for a minute because I'm starting to cry. So you go ahead.
Wow. Cooking for me brings me to the moment. Reading Dr. Seuss. I love Dr. Seuss. It makes me think of recipes from my past, my grandparents. So I think about memories and that they become here and now, the present. I sing other folks' songs, so I'm remembering them. What was a memory for people 50, 60 years ago is now present again. And we've created music, we've created art that hopefully someone a few years down the road may remember or may experience a memory from hearing and realize that while that was then, this is now. And there's really no difference between the two. It's all the moment. It's all right now, no matter what. There's no year from now. There's no tomorrow. It's all right now.
Yeah.
So, mystics and physicists will tell you that past memories don't really exist. They're present right now. And future memories, future aspirations don't exist. They're present right now. So if you focus on being right here, right now, and it's a corny saying, we hear it all the time, but it's truth. It is the ultimate truth. Be here right now.
It is. Yeah, it really is. And I kind of, when I read that, I think about the now that we find ourselves in with COVID and this pandemic and everything. And I know last year in general, for me, and I know a lot of people that I talked to, it kind of shifted perspectives for folks. And I think that is probably in a good way for a lot of people, because you don't realize maybe how much we take for granted, all of the day-to-day accessibility we have to things. And so you don't value those things until, it's just like the saying, you don't know what you have until it's gone. You don't know the value of the moment until it becomes a memory. So once, if you can be more present, as we talked about earlier, and really kind of intentionally be where you are and in tune with what it is you're doing, then the value of that, I think you'll acknowledge and recognize the value a little bit more than maybe we typically did pre-COVID pandemic. And hopefully I really hope that our society will carry some of those perspective shifts forward, and it won't just kind of dwindle away as things get back to whatever that new normal is. But
well, it starts with each of us to carry that. If we want that perspective to stick around, it really is on each of us to do that. To say, guys, this is important. We have one shot at this, and I tell my wife all this time, and she gets tired of it. But I said, I got one shot. I've got right now to do whatever this is.
Yeah,
because I'm not guaranteed anything. So one shot. I'm going to learn how to play the fiddle. I'm going to learn how to fly a plane. I'm going to do all kinds of stuff because I don't get another shot at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it takes a lot, and it shouldn't, but it takes, in the world that we live in, with a constant stream of content and just things to keep our minds busy and or ever flowing into that next thought. It really takes some intentionality to truly approach life like that. And unfortunately, I was going to say unfortunately, but actually fortunately, everybody doesn't have these near-death experiences that kind of flip that switch for them.
Sure.
But in some ways, maybe movies like Soul hopefully show us the way a little bit more, And I think
Think good thoughts. Just
yeah,
put it on a piece of paper, put it on your bathroom mirror. Think good thoughts.
yeah,
And things follow. Where energy goes, there's where you'll find your reward. So think good thoughts, and you'll be surprised what I'm thinking positively about emerging from COVID. I think we're going to move into a time that is just unparalleled.
Yeah. Well, I think the world needs it, and it's hard, to look back on history and then kind of apply it fully to moving forward. Sometimes to realize that we're truly and fully living in history right now, in this moment, as you mentioned, Tommy. We're creating history, which I think in some ways is a great little segue to this other quote that I shared with you all. And for any listeners who have followed along this podcast, they know that I quote Ram Dass quite often, because he is somebody that I listen to from a kind of a spiritual leader or whatever. I listen to a lot of his talks, and this quote is in tune with the whole being in the moment and kind of what got my motors running in my head when Jordan shared the email a few weeks ago. But this quote again is from Be Here Now, which is a book that Ram Dass wrote, and it goes like this: remember, we are all affecting the world every moment, whether we meant to or not. Our actions and states of mind matter because we're so deeply interconnected with one another. And you and I are the force for transformation in the world. We are the consciousness that will define the nature of the reality we are moving into. That is exactly what you're talking about, Tommy. And Jordan, you mentioned it too. It's really literally all up to us as individuals to think the positive thoughts, to not get caught up in the anger, the fear and the frustration, but to find the light and kind of follow and live by that light and move it forward.
But also not to diminish emotion, though. That's the really cool part about being human and understanding that like when you get angry, like where's that anger coming from? Like what is it? Because my expectations were too high for someone, for something? Did I expect to not get punched in the face? Yes, I did expect to not get, did I expect to get cut off in traffic?
Yeah.
No, I expect that people are going to follow the rules. And when, of course, when you get upset, so again, back to intentionality and knowing that we are so interconnected to be able to pull back and be like, that anger is coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
And to dig deep, 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 deep. That's meditation too. That's meditative.
Well, you mentioned, expectations. That's a lot of what, not to get like religious on it, but like the Buddhist kind of philosophy is to approach everything with no expectations of the outcome, and I think that's a lot of what Ram Dass talks about too, is like you can, and really going back to the word of Dharma and purpose, and a lot of what I'm finding as I'm researching is that it's about finding that thing that brings you joy and doing more of it, but also doing it without necessarily being tied to whatever you expect the outcome of that to be. And you guys mentioned it with what you're doing with the roasting room. You didn't necessarily go into it with the expectation of we're going to get rich off of creating this really cool music experience. It was more about let's create this community around supporting original and independent music in this really badass atmosphere, and you've obviously hit a home run there, and I'm glad that the community is still supporting and keeping you moving forward. But hopefully, if we all slow down a little bit, we'll come to those terms and find that we can make a difference in the world just by our own actions. And it doesn't have to be a major difference. It's literally could be just the way we interact with other people and the way we support other local businesses.
For sure.
Right on.
Yeah. I think that's all good. Well, I don't want to take up too much of y'all's time either. So let's kind of jump into to segment 3. Thank you for unpacking some of those things with me and digging into to being in the now and all of that. But as I ask all the guests in segment 3, we talk a little bit about any organization. It doesn't have to be a nonprofit, doesn't have to be social justice, whatever. It can just be something that is near and dear to y'all's hearts, maybe local to the community down there, but just kind of shouting out, something that you stand behind and support and want to give a shout out to.
I'm a big fan of hospice. I'm a huge fan of hospice. Their work is no one does the work that hospice does the way they do it. We should all support there's a local hospice by you, no matter where you are. Be supportive of it and appreciative of it, because we're all going to die.
Yeah.
We're all going to die. We're all going to need someone to be with us when we pass away. If we're fortunate enough, there are millions of people that pass away every day without anyone.
Yep.
So hospice is near and dear to my heart. And you can support them by donation, by being a service worker, becoming a chaplain. If it's not a crazy idea to think you could help someone through death. You're going to help someone through death sooner or later. So practice up a little bit.
Yeah, whether you want to or not. Yeah, it's a inevitable.
We're all dying every day.
Yeah.
So, let's help each other as we move forward. But that's my big one is hospice.
Cool. Yeah, I can certainly appreciate that. My mom has a neighbor who she had worked, I think she just kind of retired from it, but she had been with hospice for some time. And, to hear the stories and the impact that she talks about, it's not something that we think about every day, which is really what kind of prompted me to include this kind of a topic or a talking point in the podcast. Cause we all, we need to think about things that we don't always think about. And hospice is a very, very good one. And death is a very real reality that we're all facing. So yeah.
Sure. That's a good one, Tom.
Oh, yeah. I was just dying to say that.
Oh yeah, where's the drums? Cool.
I mentioned Deep Well Project earlier.
Yeah.
I think Deep Well for me is important because it restores dignity to people. That it's not a handout. They allow for folks that are either they are maybe they just were let go from their job and they're in between jobs. They kind of allow for them to be supported. In fact, it started as a well digging, like they dug wells for people that couldn't dig them themselves. And that was back in 1972 on Hilton Head. Grew from there. And the Santa shop that they had put on and do every year is for parents to be able to, with dignity, go and buy things for their kids at deep discounts that are brand new things. So it's really, I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah.
People to feel like they're not, that they are still able to contribute to society.
Yep.
That's a huge thing.
That's a good word there. Dignity. I mean, everybody wants to be dignified.
Sure.
We all want to have dignity and purpose and
back to hospice too.
Helping someone to have dignity, and just that you can do that by just being intentional, being here now, saying their name, saying a silent prayer for them, or donating,
or even back to the email that I sent, where you inspire others by just letting them know that they matter.
Yeah,
you matter.
Yeah, very good stuff. Well, I'll share links to both. It's Dig. Tell me the name of that again. Digwell.
Oh, Deep Well Project.
Deep Well Project. Okay, Deep Well Project. Yeah, I'll share links to that. Cool. And just tell everybody real quick, and I'll of course put these in the show notes too. But roasting, I can't remember. Is it theroastingroom.com or roastingroom.com?
Well, it is roastingroom.live.
.live. Okay, roastingroom.live.
.live. And it's also roastingroomlounge.com. So I would say roastingroom.live is a lot easier to remember.
Yep. And social handles are at
roastingroom.
I
should know.
Might need to just search it on socials. I think it's either Roasting Room SC or Roasting Room at Roasting Room. I don't quite.
Instagram
I don't remember very often. As often as I should.
No, Instagram is just at Roasting Room. But I'll include all this stuff in the show notes. I just always like to ask in case there's something that isn't blatantly obvious to me when I'm doing my doing all my prep work here.
We try to be active, but I can't do everything.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And I was talking to somebody yesterday about marketing shows, and it's like, if you don't have a whole lot of stuff on the books, it's hard to be, a huge content creator. You know what I mean? So hopefully
we were doing 5 to 6 posts a week.
Yeah.
Now we're doing 0.
Yeah.
1
every couple of weeks. Yeah. Well, hopefully that'll all shift as we start to come together and come out of this pandemic together. But I really appreciate you guys taking the time to be a part of this and, jump on this call with me. So thank you.
Likewise, Taylor.
Thank you.
Yeah. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to go follow the Roasting Room. I will, like I mentioned, include all the links. But as always, I appreciate you listening. And you got to make a plan if you don't live near or in Bluffton or Hilton Head area or Savannah. You got to get down there and see a show. It is definitely a moment that you will want to remember and not forget. And the vibes are great. So I can't wait to see you guys again soon down there. And hopefully I'll be bringing some friends at some point in time when we're back to normal shows.
Right on. Us too, Taylor.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week on the Dharma Digs podcast. Cheers.